a classic car enthusiast is as concerned with what type of tires they put on their car.
Nope. And tires are so subjective, it's such a personal thing, of look and feel and drive and, what are you trying to accomplish, so most of the people in the classic, what the percentage of a daily driver would be. I would think the daily driver is, maybe at the most 20%. So those tires are, that summer when they bring their classics out and, take it to car shows and drive around in the summer and then they park it and store it away.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. As you think about the overall, aftermarket suppliers for the classic car industry, are there any, I guess you mentioned some of the large players that were consolidated. You said Classics Industry, OBGI, Drake Automotive. Are there any other major distributors out there that come to mind? Or do you think there are any, certain product categories that may make sense for these companies to expand into, or maybe another outside company to combine and start to consolidate the industry?
As far as ones that come to mind in the Ford area, CJ Pony, they're pretty big. East Coast company, and just in I think probably the last year and a half, opened a large distribution facility in Las Vegas to try to capture more of the West Coast market. There's a company, you see several companies that will specifically buy from overseas and then resell that type of product. ACP is out here that sells a lot of the Ford line. In Texas, there's a couple different companies, Classic Restoration, and there was one other one that specifically, their whole goal is to buy sheet metal overseas, bring in containers, and then resell sheet metal. And they become important in the industry as when you buy sheet metal, you're kind of forecasting out and buying it in either anywhere from a 3-month to a 6-month supply, because you have such a little bit longer lead time to get that product from Taiwan back to here. So these guys fill that gap when companies like Classic or California Mustang have run out of certain sheet metal products. They can buy it domestically and get it, with a week's time frame. So I see a little niche there that is out there. Consolidating is tough, just because are you consolidating every manufacturer? And that's why you see such a breakup, because, like I said, just in our company for just Mustang, we had $1.5 million of inventory. So how much inventory do you want to stock? And there is that rule of thumb that people, you got to have it in stock, or otherwise you lose the sale.
Got it. Okay.
I don't know if I answered your question completely, but it's tough. The consolidating is a tough one.
Yeah, no, I think that's consistent with some of the other research we've been conducting. But I think if you were to consolidate, a particular, let's say a couple types of suppliers and adjacent categories, would it make sense are there certain categories that make sense to try and do that in versus others, or is it just, completely tough regardless of what you try to consolidate? And when I say adjacent categories, I'm meaning like, maybe you consolidate wheels and tires, or, brakes and shocks, or, certain engine component manufacturers, companies that are supplying similar parts but, are independent of each other at the time.
Yeah, you could look at it from a suspension portion, maybe struts and shocks, that type of thing, where you don't have such a wide variety. And that's what I would kind of look at is, what categories don't just keep expanding. A shock